Okay, now we're going to talk about the Chinese syllables. What is a Chinese syllable? Actually, that is how we're going to pronounce a Chinese character. So, a Chinese syllable is usually made up of an initial, a final, and a tone. So it consists of three parts, right? Generally speaking, one Chinese character corresponds to one syllable. That means the syllable is the thing we're going to use for pronunciation when we are going to read the characters. A Chinese syllable can have no initial, but must have a final and a tone. That means sometimes the initials can be omitted, but not the final and not the tone. However, we do have a neutral tone that has no mark. The kind of like the tone is omitted, but actually no. That is because it's using a neutral tone, and we're going to learn it later. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. The first one is simple one. Firstly, the initial, if you remember, initial is called mo, right? Now, the final is ao, and they're in the first term. So together it becomes mo, ao, mao. Great. Now, read after me one more time. Mo, ao, mao. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the second one. The second one actually has no initial. So, has no initial here, but it is written like this. How come? Firstly, let's take a look at the final. This final, if you remember, it is read as yu. Okay, then it becomes the second tone. So it becomes yu. Okay, that is how we pronounce this syllable here, yu. But it has no initial, right? How come? Let's take a look at this note here. When the final yi or the final yu acts as a syllable by itself, actually this is the yu acts as a syllable by itself, okay? So when we meet this kind of scenario, the initial yi is added before it with the two dots on the top of yu being removed. Pay attention to this rule and you should keep it in mind. So this is the syllable, but this is actually the original final. Then change this original final according to this rule, it becomes this syllable. Okay? Now, when there's also another rule for wu here, when wu, the final wu, acts as a syllable by itself, the initial wu should added before it. So in this note, it says this kind of occasions. The first one is e. If e acts as the syllable by itself, so in the syllable it should become like this, and then we add the terms before it. For example, if it's the third tone, it becomes like this. Okay, and if it's wu, then it will become like this. If it's the fourth tone, then it becomes like this. And the yu, we already see it like this here. Yu becomes yu and add the tone, and with the two doors removed. Okay, this is the second syllable. Let's read it one more time. Yu. Great. Now, the third one. The third one is simple. Firstly, the initial is ji. The final is ye. The tone is the third tone, like this. So, each combined together. Read after me. Ji, ye, jie. So when we read these syllables, for example, when you read these syllables, we should read it because you are the beginners, right? the beginner in your beginning learning the Mandarin, so it is better for you to read in this pattern. Then you will become more familiar with these initials and the finals. So the pattern should be like Ji, initial first, Ye, final first, then Ji, the initial the second time, Ye, the final with the tone, then read the initial and the final together, Jie. Okay, read after me one more time. Ji, Ye, Ji, Ye, Jie. Great. Now, the fourth syllable actually just has a final, so and it's in the fourth tone, so it becomes, if you remember, this final is pronounced as now with the first tone is like this, okay. Now these other Chinese syllables, we're going to have some practice.